Okay, hello. This is Daniel from TradeGame. Um, so, in this video, we're going to talk about a bot that I've just opened on January 3rd, here, 2024. And we're going to see, or we're going to sort of discuss what might happen with it, and whether or not it was a good idea, a terrible idea. We'll sort of find out. So I've used a little margin to open a grid trading bot on Ethereum, and I've used the smallest amount that I could sort of use reasonably in order to make the parameters of the bot work the way it's set up for Ethereum, right? This is a pretty, it's the most blue chip of the cryptocurrencies aside from Bitcoin, right? And generally is expected to do rather well, expected to do slightly better than Bitcoin, not necessarily like amazingly like 10 or 20 times what Bitcoin does or something, but if Bitcoin doubles in value, Ethereum might go up 150% in value or something, or 120% in value or something. It's not going to be tremendous. Anyway, and also some people within the cryptocurrency community are sort of saying Ethereum is fine, but it's also kind of obsolete, or getting obsolete anyway, and it's just not as efficient as some of the newer networks, and so this may end up sort of not being as popular a network as some of the other ones, although it's kind of hard to really say what's going to happen. But at least for the foreseeable future, Ethereum is a very safe investment. But just if you're going to be, what I'm saying is that if you're going to be picking between Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and these other bigger cap coins to put money into, Ethereum will probably do well, and it'll probably do a little better than Bitcoin, but it's not going to be like this like crazy explosive growth likely, although it might. You never really know exactly, and so this is kind of why it's nice to be in the market, to be invested in all of these things at least a little bit, because if one of them does really take off in value quite a bit rather rapidly, you're more likely to benefit from it if you have some money invested in it. Whereas if you don't, then you would only potentially indirectly benefit from it, at least financially. And then, of course, if you are watching the market but you aren't invested in it, and you don't benefit indirectly, then you are benefiting because you're observing it and you're learning. And so just being involved at all, if you're interested in engaging in this sort of commerce practice, just being involved at all is useful and a good first step. All right, so for Ethereum, I had set up a new bot, and this is going to be one that has 30 times leverage, which is a little on the high side compared to some of the other ones. The 8 bot, I believe, was 25 times leverage, and the the little Doge bot is like 20 times leverage. So this one's going to be a little on the high side in terms of leverage. Trying to configure the grid with this one based on what the predicted liquidation value on the exchange is. It was kind of interesting changing the grid around because it changed and seeing where, at least according to the algorithm that BYD-Fi has set up, where they sort of place their estimate for where it would get liquidated. Because how do you how do you estimate that sort of thing for something like a grid bot? You don't know where the price action is going to range. I don't know how. I don't know how they're doing that calculation, but it was interesting to mess around with it and see where I thought it would go. So anyway, I found that to some extent, and this does make perfect sense, as I lowered the grid to try and get the grid to cover down to the liquidation value, the estimated liquidation, not the actual, but the estimated liquidation value kept going down because it was trying to compensate for whatever return on investment might be occurring as the price action moved down. So it was kind of like, oh, well, okay. So at some point, you just have to set the grid and just kind of let it go down to where you think is a pretty safe level, I think. So anyway, so the so-called AI settings on BYD-Fi had defined a range for 10 times leverage as going down to here $2,749.10 per Ethereum, up to was it like 4,200 or something, which is fine. And we were doing this again with an arithmetic grid, where the grid lines are more concentrated around where the price action is at the beginning, and then they get broader as they go further out. There's more space in between them, and so. But what I have done is I've set this up because I think Ethereum's going to do well. We're very, very bullish on this. I'm going to skew this grid so that it goes up higher than what the sort of AI, and I'm sort of doing air quotes as I say AI because it's entirely possible that when they say AI, they just mean like they just have it set to do a grid that's just sort of like the Bollinger Band on the weekly chart or something like that. That's not necessarily artificially intelligence derived, but is just sort of a smart setting that is like a rule of thumb for like a 10 times grid bot, or maybe 2 standard deviations away from the current price or something like that. Anyway, so I felt like after messing around with the grid settings for a while, I felt like just using the default bottom for the grid really was pretty good. I mean, that seemed like a pretty reasonable level, actually. And so I left that where it was. But I did feel like it would be a good idea to extend the grid up to a higher level so that if Ethereum does have a rather bullish few months here, we can kind of let this grid bot run further off into the future, and it'll still actively trade for a while before becoming just a regular long position. Right. But yes, and of course, as you get out here, the bot will be trading rather infrequently because it's an arithmetic grid, and so the grid lines get further and further apart the higher out you get in the grid. So it's sort of becoming more like just having a regular long position as you get further away from here. Okay, so, but we're going to try this with 30 times leverage, which is higher than some of the other ones that were more conservative. And so when this thing actually starts, it has not really started yet. It will be interesting to see what the actual liquidation value is, or what the liquidation value is going to be as assigned once the bot starts trading. So this is a long bot, a position I'm taking on Ethereum, starting today, January 3rd, very early in the morning, January 3rd, because I'm thinking that Ethereum is going to have a bullish few weeks. Could be wrong, but that's what I'm hoping for. And right. So the thing with doing a higher leverage bot is that the liquidation value is something that's going to be a little tricky when it starts. Right? So not wanting this bot to get liquidated would be useful to make sure it starts, or to try to get it to start on an upswing. So if we can get this thing to at least somewhat reasonably start the bot on an uptrend, it will help to hedge against the bot possibly being liquidated. So to that end, I'm going to the 4-hour time frame. This is what we look like on the 4-hour time frame for Ethereum. Bitcoin recently had an upwards movement over the last couple of days. And the rest of the market is also starting to move up. Some of the traders and commentators and stuff that I like to listen to for at least my discussion stuff believe that Bitcoin has found its bottom for this most recent correction sometime in the last couple of days here. So they were calling it around like 91,000 or something that was happening around this time. So if that is true, and Bitcoin is going to start another leg up, even if Bitcoin is still ranging and is just starting the next swing up of its ranging or its consolidation motion, that's fine. Just so long as the overall market movement is to the upside for a little bit here, that's all that I'm really interested in, or that all we really kind of need to get this bot going right now. But what I need to do, or what I'm trying to get it to do, is get it to fire off, get it to start at a good point where it'll hopefully go into profit right after it starts, and start making some good grid profits fairly soon, right away, so that it hopefully be reasonably decent, like sort of swing trade as well as the beginning to a grid bot. So anyway, on the 4-hour, oh gosh, here let's look at our usual indicators. So Hikinashi, yeah, we got a kind of a ranging motion here, consolidation pattern, and then you have an Hikinashi starting a green section here, candles getting thicker. It may continue to print green candles for a little bit and then go red and then go green, or might not. I don't know. We'll have to kind of see. But this could potentially be the beginning of a big sequence of green candles. We're not really sure. Hopefully, you see this big old red at the beginning of this correction here. So hopefully, this is the beginning of a big old green on the other side. We'll just have to kind of see. Okay. So yeah. So this actually looks like here. Squeeze momentum indicator kind of has us. Squeeze bear momentum? Oh, that's not right. Squeeze momentum indicator by Lazy Bear that I keep calling the squeeze bear. The squeeze bear. Squeezy bear. Whatever. Indicator is suggesting that we might start swinging down here a little bit more in a bit. Which kind of makes sense. We just had a pump, and it makes sense for it to correct down for a little bit right afterwards. It's already fulfilled its liquidity, at least a little bit here. It's already fulfilled its liquidity right there. In fact, going back to here, it's already filled its fair trade gap, is what I'm saying. But it may continue basically based on this oscillator. It's moved to the downside just a little bit more before continuing, hopefully, on its uptrend. At least according to this oscillator, is kind of what we're looking at, and which is what I think is what I was predicting on the 1 hour chart as well. We're hoping for the 1 hour chart. It's because if we go to here and do 1 hour. This is, kind of more what I was looking at when I was starting to set up this new Ethereum bot. So, hey, all right. So essentially, the way I have this set up, we're looking at this price action. We've had a recent pump in Bitcoin. We may be coming out of the correction in Bitcoin, coming out of a dip, perhaps. And so Ethereum also has had a pump recently, which you can see here. And so now we're going to be correcting down probably for a little bit, and then hopefully we're going to continue to the upside. At least that's what we're sort of hoping and looking for. But at least that's what it looks like from the higher time frames. So the question for me, wanting to start this grid bot, is where should I start it? How far down is this going to correct before it swings back to the upside? Because I don't want to start the bot right now and then have this correct further down than I want it to and have the bot get liquidated, because then I just lose my investment, and it's a shame. So, well, not a shame, but it's an adverse outcome. It's not what we're looking for. So looking at this time frame, what I kind of did is I'm saying, like, all right, we had a pump here, and now we're wheedling down a little bit. We're winding down, winding up and down as we're going down, setting lower lows and lower highs here. So I just went ahead and marked out a channel with kind of a line of best fit going down here. And so, that being the case, we need to figure out like how long, how far is this thing gonna go before it's done with its correction, right? So the way that I like to do this, and I believe if I remember correctly, the way I did this here. Remember, I've said that I use this indicator a lot. I think it's really handy, nifty tool. In order to try and figure out, like, where the bottom of this next dip might be, perhaps, in terms of the oscillator and in terms of time, what you find when you look at the market, when you look at these oscillators, the reason we use these oscillators is there's sort of a discernible, pattern here, and so patterns are useful in trading because they help us to develop our strategies and help us to be more wise and make better decisions. So, given that we have this oscillator and this does have a relatively not erratic, but a really definitely like okay. Let's just hope and assume that it's not going to deviate too much from this pattern anytime soon. What we can do is use this to, oh goodness, where? I know it's in here somewhere. Here we go. To try to extrapolate, which is always tricky. Extrapolation, as my statistics. Ugh, that word is awkward. Statistics professor really is. I used to say extrapolation is very, very tricky because you're working with data outside an established data set. Interpolation, working within your data set, is how you do good science, good studies and stuff. But when you're talking about trading, speculative trading, you sort of have to speculate on what's going to perhaps happen in the future in the market, and so you sort of don't have any choice but to extrapolate. But it's very anyway. So statisticians don't like this sort of practice. They don't like having to do this sort of thing, but that's because they're mathematicians and they're statisticians, and that's their job. And I totally get it. I can dig it, but we're not academics. We're not statisticians. We're trying to trade on the market. So, presuming that Ethereum is going to be trading sort of in this channel, setting lower lows as it goes, and lower highs as it goes. And if we have an oscillation pattern that we think it runs roughly about that far apart, then hopefully it will be ranging somewhere around here when this oscillator gets to the apex of its red portion, right? And so you can kind of see, and so I can pretty much promise you this is how I set this channel earlier, because you can see that the line for the lines that I have set up here match up with where I set the end of this channel. And so when I was putting this bot together earlier, I think that I just set the trigger for the bot to start at this blue line. Just as a placeholder, really, because I just wanted to set the bot up and see what the possible liquidation values might be and stuff. But I didn't want it to necessarily really hit until I had a chance to come here and make a video and be off of work and everything. But also, it didn't look to me like it was going to get far enough down to reasonably, for me to reasonably want it to trigger until sometime tomorrow, really. So I just set it down here at this blue line. But what we're going to do, what we're going to decide right now is where we are going to set the trigger, right? So I'm going to get this off here because that's useful, but we don't need it right now. We've established our channel and what time we'd like to enter the trade. But what we're going to do is sort of establish at what level within this range we want to enter, right? So there are a few ways we can do this. And well, nah, I'm not going to Fibonacci stuff. Let's use either I think that what I was using earlier and what we should use this time is either support and resistance or supply and demand indicators. These are the two that I like to use. If you're looking at the market, you can use your own. So on the 1 hour, at least based on these automatic levels, we should have pretty thick these areas of resistance and support. So we've broken down through here, and we'll see if it can break through this area of previous support. But when it comes to that here, when it comes to actually being in our time frame, it's possible it'll get down here and it'll bounce off of this area of previous support. It's possible. But, this area, this green area right here of support is right around $3,400. Around even numbers like $3,400 are sort of psychologically significant in the market for people setting orders for things. Because not everybody cares to look this closely at the prices. They just bet, let's do $3,400 or something. Whereas this one is not really near any significance. It's not near like $3,500 or anything. So this is kind of near a price level that might be psychologically significant in the market, whereas this one is not. And also, this one fits the trend line from the middle of the channel really well right here. So my thinking is that really we need to set the trigger for this bot to be somewhere within this area of support right here. I apologize for my dog who's getting excited. Okay. All right. So we can set it right there, but I'm also going to take a quick look at the other one I like to use. Supply and demand. I don't know if this is going to give us too much information, but okay, all right. I do believe that my dog wants to be let outside. All right. So this doesn't give us a whole lot. There's sort of an area of possible support or resistance here, which kind of is the same thing we were seeing before. And our suggested entry point is just sort of right in the middle of the supply and demand, with one of these areas, if you go a little bit further back, being pretty close to where we were setting our suggested trigger price. So this doesn't disagree with or suggest anything that would be um, particularly that would change what we had proposed with the supply and resistance indicator. So these are the settings for my Ethereum bot that's going to trade with 30 times leverage. And I'm going to set it now. I'll have to change it so that the trigger price is $3,407. So it will not begin its trading and start entering long positions until or unless Ethereum gets down and touches that price level. So we'll have to wait until tomorrow, probably at around 3 p.m. I will be at work when that happens, so I may not really be watching. And if my predictions here are correct, and there's a reasonably good chance my predictions will not be correct, but if they are, then around that time, this bot will hopefully perhaps start, and hopefully also the price action will change to the upside around that time. So it's a little bit tedious. It would be more fun if I could start the bot right now, but this is how we do it. Like this, you gotta plan stuff ahead and have a strategy if you want to be successful. And this is all highly experimental. I've not opened a bot with 30 times leverage before. I've opened bots with 150 times and with 50 times and with other leverages, but 30 is just it's just a leverage level that I've not tried using before with these bots. And anyway, so that is on the 1 hour, but just sort of as a general reminder, that's on the 1 hour, but this is the actual scale on which we are trying to trade Ethereum here, which is the daily time scale, and that is where we are at with respect to the entire grid as planned out for this bot, if it actually works the way we BYD-Fi's predicted liquidation values and stuff. Project it will work out. Although I expect that my expectation is that when I do open it, it'll get an assigned liquidation value, and it'll probably be much closer to the price action than here. I think that when they're giving estimated liquidation values, they're trying to give you an estimated liquidation value based on the assumption that the bot's going to be grid trading down to that point. So I might have to remake this once the bot actually gets started. Okay. Yeah, man, that is where we are at with this Ethereum bot. Let's see, this is the TradeGame channel. I'm Daniel. God be with you, be good to one another, and I will talk to you later.